Scott Howard, welcome to Brett Russell Chats.
Thank you very much, Brett.
Great, thank you for spending time today and for the podcast. And Scott, it's amazing. You're the director, COO of Endemol Shine Australia. You've done a lot in your time in your life, and today we're going to delve in and get to know you a lot more. But
Okay.
what got you into media? What got you into the media world? And I do understand that you started in law. How did that come about?
Sure. Well, I don't know how far back you want to go, but yes, I was a lawyer for a long time in Edinburgh,
Yes.
for about 11 years, partner in a commercial law firm there, sitting in my corner office in Queen Street in Edinburgh, contemplating the next decades of my life and deciding that I couldn't possibly carry on and be as bored as that, sitting in Edinburgh in that little office, and decided that I would be better off doing something else. So I'd spent a lot of time on arts boards when I was a lawyer, but I hadn't sort of worked in that world at all. And I met an Australian woman and we got married, and I decided to make a career change. So resigned my partnership to the surprise of the rest of the partners and disappeared off to Australia, ostensibly for a year. This is back in 1999.
Wow.
Just to sort of recalibrate and come up with a new career, whatever that might be. At 35, I was, and came out to Australia and moved to Sydney and started again, basically.
And how did you find that change? How did you find that change? I mean, culturally,
fantastic.
culturally,
fantastic. I mean, look, it's pretty scary to give up everything you know, give up your career. I wasn't going to requalify as a lawyer because I didn't want to go back to that particularly. So it was pretty scary to come out, but it was exciting as well. It's like, when you're 35, you think you're old and you think you're in the, you're past your prime, and but actually you're still young, as it turns out.
Yeah, for sure.
You have the ability to look at doing new things. So I came across and just did a few interesting things. My first job was working for John Paulson at Tropfest back in the day when it was still relatively small in the domain, big enough, but an interesting little organization. So I did a bit of that. I did a bit of work for a little company called the Arts Law Centre of Australia, which gives free legal advice to artists and filmmakers and musicians and anyone who doesn't have any money, basically. So I did that for quite a bit. And then I ended up running the Asia Pacific arm of a Scottish IT company for a mate who didn't know anyone else in Australia and didn't have anyone else to contact. And he wanted to get IBM as a client out in Asia Pacific, including Australia. And he asked me for help. So I did that for about 3 or 4 years. And then I will go into that, but I left that. And then had a daughter and took some time out. I was at a barbecue. We had a barbecue at our house, and a friend of a friend came along to the barbecue, and we got chatting. And I was trying to work out what to do. I was doing a bit of daddy daycare. My wife went back to work, and I was looking after our daughter, which was, I still think, the hardest job I've ever done.
That's right. It's
by a long way.
Work. Tough work. Tough work.
Very, very hard, and not easy at all. I struggled with that, to be honest. Anyway, at the barbecue, he was chatting, and he happened to work for a TV production company called Grundy. Reg Grundy as a whole, so Neighbours and game shows and stuff. And he said, "I'm missing someone, a few people in the office. Would you come in and give us a hand?" And I said, "Well, I've done a bit of film work, but I haven't done any much TV work. Most of my legal work was in property." In commercial property stuff. And he went, "Oh, you'll pick it up fine. It'll be easy." So, okay. So I went in for about 3 weeks. That was about 2006, and I've never left the industry. So just sort of kept going, and very quickly Grundy merged with Crackerjack, which is another little production company, both owned by Pearson TV. They became Fremantle Media Australia.
That's great.
And I was there all the way through for Fremantle Media until the two brothers who set up Fremantle, who had owned Crackerjack, set up Shine TV, which was funded by Liz Murdoch. and I
Yes.
went over to join them in 2010, and then Shine, a little bit later, she sold it to her father, Rupert, and to News, and then News sold it to Disney. So Shine became Endemol Shine when they merged those two companies, and there's a few other mergers since. But I've basically been at Endemol Shine for the last 14 years,
Wow.
almost 15 years almost, and I became COO about 4 years ago now.
Wow. Fantastic. And really, Scott, I mean, Endemol Shine is really you guys really have taken reality TV. You were the start and really took it to the next level with that. I mean, MasterChef, was it Big Brother, Lego Masters,
Yeah, I mean, look,
lots of
the list is endless. We make
maths.
now we make about 550 hours of TV a year, from the Channel 9, Married at First Sight, to MasterChef, as you say, to Australian Survivor, to Lego Masters, to new formats like The Summit, to little factual shows like Old People's Home for 4 years olds and Old People's Home for teenagers.
Yeah,
A new format coming out in the ABC called Headliners, which is about
wow.
disabled people forming a band and getting to perform at a big festival, to drama as well. We're now into drama
Yes,
as well, even though
because you,
most.
you had the in excess story there.
Yeah, the first drama Shine did was the NXS story, which
Fantastic.
Mark Fennessy produced, which was amazing. And then we did the Catching Ivan Milat, which was the story of the police that caught Milat, which was an
That's
amazing little piece of work. We did
yes,
The Boy Next Door, which was um, the story of oh God, I forgot his name now. That's terrible.
there's
Uh, Peter. God, his name's gone out of my head entirely now.
Peter Allen. Peter Allen.
Peter Allen, of
Peter
course.
Allen.
I had
Yeah,
my
yeah.
I had my friend Peter O'Brien
That's
name in my head. I'm thinking it's not Peter's, it's not his story.
the Peter
Peter
Allen
Allen,
story.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
But then subsequently we did a few series of Offspring later on with Imogen Banks, and then we got Sarah Richardson came in for drama, and
Yes.
we have made recently we've made and then we're in the middle of producing the second series of NCIS Sydney, which is the first version of international franchise made outside of America in
And
Sydney here. And it got first series got broadcast in US television. It's the first Australian show with Australian voices on prime time, successfully on prime time American network TV ever. And we're second season's just about finished. That'll be on air here and in the US, and then
yes,
hopefully we'll get season 3 too. So there's a lot of unscripted TV, huge big brands,
yes,
as you say, including Big Brother and
yeah,
MasterChef, but some scripted too. So yeah, we have a vast array of work, and the company's always driven to build out the business really, really significantly, and we've continued to grow it quite substantially, not just here but across the world. So that a lot of our Australian shows now are really successful. So, Married at First Sight is Channel 4 in the UK's most successful import
wow,
program ever, ever.
incredible,
So, and
incredible.
if you go to bars and restaurants in the UK when Married at First Sight Australia is on, they're talking about it there as much as they talk about
But
it.
that's fantastic. I mean, I was going to say, really, you guys are you're the forerunners of and the creators of getting that vision of really reality TV. But it's such a dynamic force. I mean, people just love it. As you said, everyone around wherever they are, they're talking about these TV shows, and I mean, you must feel proud about sort of diversifying TV and broadcast in that way. I mean, it's back in the day when I was younger, and certainly probably when you were, it was sort of a certain set amount of
Yes.
TV shows, and they were structured in that way, and it's how it was. But
No, completely. I mean, reality TV was originally, it came from documentaries. It
yeah,
was
yeah,
single camera, fixed camera documentaries. That's where reality TV came from originally.
yeah,
But reality TV really is a mix. I think, it's a personal view. I think it's a mix of documentary and drama. Um,
yes,
and and
yes,
and really, with a show like Married at First Sight and others, they're really soap operas. They're just
yeah,
real life soap operas.
Yes.
and unpredictable ones at that, because I know people sometimes, think that things are scripted, but the reality is you couldn't script these things. You couldn't
No,
come up
no,
with
that's right.
stories of what people actually do. You just can't.
Yes.
Um, and but they're real life soap operas, and that's what people love and get completely into.
Yeah.
But it's that amazing amalgam of real life people, extraordinary situations, and yeah, I mean, storylines that are quite fantastical.
That's
But then you have other ones like MasterChef, which is, at the end of the day, talent shows have been a mainstay of television since television first started. When I
that's
think the
right.
very first show on Australian television was a spelling bee,
That's
so
right.
it was a talent show, and so talent shows keep going. But what we love about MasterChef is, I remember watching the original MasterChef, which was a little Sunday afternoon show in the UK that ran for a couple of decades, and it was very kind of twee BBC afternoon thing, once a week, with generally housewives, not exclusively, but mainly housewives, who came on and made a three-course meal and got
Yes.
judged by a celebrity chef, which was a new concept.
Yeah.
A host called Lloyd Grossman, the sort of
Ah,
contorted
yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Chicagoan accent, I think it was,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then and a celebrity who came on and sort of judged it, and then Liz Murdoch bought the format, or acquired the rights to the format, I should say, and then sort of remade it in the UK as something a bit more streamlined, a sort of proper competition. And
Yeah.
then when it came to Australia, it was turned into something else. So the
Yeah.
format here got turned into, again, it was a once a week thing. We turned it into a 6 night a week what's called a strip show, which means it runs multiple nights a week. Six
Yeah.
nights a week extravaganza with really blew up the format into something very, very significant.
Yeah.
And as a result, that MasterChef Australia was birthed to enormous success, and we're still going 16 years later. And actually, of the 47 or 48 versions that go around the world, they're all based on the Australian version, not the British version,
Wow.
as it turns out. Although the
Well,
Brits don't, but
I
that's
mean,
true
that's something to be
nonetheless.
proud of, right? That's something to be proud of.
And
That's
the same thing with Married at First Sight. Married at First Sight was a little, six, I think, six couples, I think was all it was originally, and it was a very small little documentary program. And again, the creative team here took it and turned it into something much, much bigger, into the big behemoth that is now Married at
yeah.
First Sight, with new format beats and so on. So that the people love and watch,
Yeah.
religiously whenever it's on every year. So the team here do an amazing job from a creative point of view and a production point of view. We're very proud of all of that,
Yeah.
and including a whole bunch of new formats too. So we just
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah. No. No. I mean, as you're aware, you're at the pointy end of it. Australian production is amazing. It's yeah. I've been lucky in the past to be involved with some training aspects for some movies like Matrix and all that sort of
Sure,
stuff today. But
sure.
um, the Australian production end is world class. So from
Oh,
what
no question. I mean, we not only produce world-class television, there's world-class talent in front of and behind the camera. The teams here are as good as anyone else in the world, if not better, actually. And we can produce as good television as anywhere else in the world. And that is now, thankfully, more recognized now than ever before, which is fantastic. We should be absolutely competing head on with the Americans and with the Brits, for the best of TV, and we are. We've got a little Emmy outside my office out
oh
here, for a little show we made for the ABC called Old People's Home for 4 years old, which won an Emmy.
yeah
And we've
yeah
got another show, our own IP, which is up for an Emmy this year, which is The Summit, which is an adventure reality competition show that was filmed in New Zealand. So that's
yeah
now going around the world as well. So we're
that's
very, very excited about that.
yeah. No, I was actually going to say, where do you see production and media going? From here? Where? I mean, you might know, you might have some inside information, but where do you see it? Is it going to keep going in different directions, or is it going to sort of, is it obviously streaming is a big thing these days, and
Sure. The streaming world has fundamentally changed the whole industry. I mean, look, if I had a great crystal ball and I really knew how things were going to be in a few years, I'd be doing very well. But I don't, it's anyone's guess. But there are certain things that I think are definitely true. The streaming international companies have um, changed the environment forever. They've changed the industry forever because they have, in essence, begun to melt the territorial borders that sort of limited broadcast. Because it used to be territory by territory, and you'd have, networks who were only broadcasting within their territory, and you'd go around the world, and that's the way that it worked. Of course, none of the streamers do that. The international streamers, they operate on a worldwide basis. So one of the impacts of that is we're now dealing with a worldwide industry, and therefore changes that happen in America or the UK impact here much, much faster. And Australia is a very big adopter of new technology generally, and a very big adopter of new media and streamers. We have, I think, a higher proportion of our population who have streaming services than I think per capita anywhere else in the world. It's huge. But take there's a big demand for content, and I know there's a lot of chat about TV being dead. Don't believe a word of it. Not true.
No.
There's more content being made and more people watching content than ever before, and there's a greater access to it worldwide than ever before. So there are higher expectations, which is fine and good. But there's the dynamics of the market are shifting. There's revenue dynamics and sponsorship and so on, which are difficult things to manage and deal with. So there are difficult constraints, and there's consolidation that's happening internationally and in America that sort of impacts here much faster than it used to. So there are lots of difficult elements, and there's less money available across the board than there used to be to make individual productions, just because of the way the market is. YouTube is a big broadcaster now. They worldwide, they're the biggest. They're almost as big as Disney now, I think. So, but it's very the things that are on YouTube are very different than programs. Maybe there'll be more of a confluence of that. You'll see more similar TV programs on YouTube than you have in the past. Maybe who knows? We'll see how it plays out. But there are still opportunities. There are still plenty of work. There is still plenty of work worldwide. I think part of the question we have in this country is how do we take as much of that into Australia? And certainly whenever I do any lobbying with state or federal governments, it's about the opportunities there for Australia to have a bigger slice of the international revenue, the international commissioning revenue that is spent on commissioning new shows. We should be getting more of that, not less.
That's true.
And I think that's a really important opportunity for us, but we have to do more work for that and build the infrastructure to make that happen, which hopefully federal and state governments will be receptive to. Hopefully.
That's right. They'll come on board. And I mean, with you personally, what's your favorite type of program? Is it what? Do you have a favorite, or are there many types?
Oh, look, I love talent shows. It goes back to seller, and I love the fact that the talent shows that we have made historically and now are all about celebrating people's talent. They're none of there's sometimes you get more negative elements in talent shows, which are about laughing at people's misfortune or people's belief in themselves, misplaced belief in themselves. But a lot of the talent shows that we have produced are actually aspirational. They're about celebrating the real talent that people have, and that's what MasterChef does better than any other show. And I love that. I still love that. It's one of those shows that I watch every year. Quite religiously. So I love that. I watch a lot of drama. I love those things, but I love little factual programs too. The little programs we've done like Old People's Home, but also one of my favorite programs was a little program we did called Look Me in the Eye that was on SBS several years ago. I think it's still available on their online service. It's a great program. It's basically based on the original idea was based on an exhibition by an artist called Marina Abramovich, who sat at the moment in New York as a part of an exhibition, a real life exhibition, where she just sat in a chair and had a queue of people who would sit opposite her, not able to speak. and just look her in the eye for as long as they wanted to, and then they would move on, and the next person would come and sit and look. And so the whole concept of the program was bringing people together who, for whatever reason, were out of touch, or and we had fathers and daughters who hadn't spoken in 35 years. We had sisters that hadn't spoken for decades. We had a father and a son that had not spoken in 45 years. We had amazing stories. We had two Sudanese boy soldiers, both who were now living in Australia, who hadn't spoken since one had tortured the other as boy soldiers, and so we had them on. So, and in the way the program worked, they were brought in separately, and they weren't allowed to speak, and they just could look at each other to see what happened, what communication happened, and then they would leave the room and decide if they wanted to go back in and actually speak. And it was the same process for everyone, and it was amazing. It was, I think, one of the most rewarding shows. Ray Martin was the host of it. It was a fantastic show. Unfortunately, nobody watched it, but which happens sometimes.
I mean, it sounds touching, and I mean, it as you said, it would evoke emotion, and
one of the most emotionally moving shows I've ever been in and sort of been involved with. It's quite extraordinary. But I love shows like that. I love shows that get into the weeds and make you move you, give you new angles that you haven't seen or thought of before. So I love those kind of things.
Well, I think exactly what you said there. Well, I know I was looking at the catalog of the shows that you've done, and as you did say, I've pretty much watched all of them myself, and over time, and they all, as you said, have positivity to them. There's positive elements, and it's about getting the best out of people, and celebrating the positives, and I love that. That's what I'm doing with Brett Russell Chats here. It's all about positivity and I suppose inspiring the next generation into going and forging ahead and making life great. And really, that's what you've done, Scott. You've been a big part of, I suppose, forging the media element ahead in a positive direction. I mean, that's an incredible thing. What
Well, look, I mean, my role as a businessman. I mean, I run the business side of the TV company. I'm not a creative. I'm not one of the directors of content. I mean, I work with all of those people daily, and I love and revere them. They're amazing at what they do. Yeah, it's an amazing team. People I've worked with for a very, very long time, and I'm in awe of what they do. But my job is to run the business side of things, to run things operationally, to make sure we have enough money to make the shows, and we can still make money on the back of it, and to deal with dealing with a lot of problems. I'm a problem solver. A lot of the time, and I try and help smooth things and make things work okay. And as I say, solve those problems. So, but I love facilitating that, and I don't have any qualms about sort of working on the business side, because I love being able to do that and use whatever I can, skills I've got, to try and facilitate things and hopefully make things work better and resolve situations for the better for everyone, for the people who are making the show, to the people who are taking part in the show, to looking after them. I mean, we do it's not a widely talked about thing, but we do a lot of welfare for all people who take part in every single show that we do. We're not always successful at it, but we do a lot of work to try and manage the welfare of participants and crew as much as we possibly can across a very wide range of complicated, dynamic programs.
I was going to say, logistically, it must be. It's a big thing that you undertake with a show like
It's huge. Any of these shows is absolutely a huge undertaking. We kept going all the way through COVID, so we made 16 shows during lockdown and COVID, which necessitated having a ring of steel around every production, literally. And COVID sort of like kind of passport control. You weren't
Wow.
allowed in until you'd had a COVID test, and then as you were waiting for the COVID test, you were kept separate, and then only if you passed the test were you then allowed
Wow.
into the production. And we didn't have one instance of COVID all the way through. So and the crew to give, we did our best to try and manage it, but really it was the crews that did the work and made
Yes.
it happen, and they were extraordinary, and they made the great personal commitments that people made to continue working were extraordinary. There were people who had to move out of home in order to continue working, so they could, we put them up in some hotels close to where they were working, so they didn't have to travel too much, and they didn't bring any risk into the production, from home or from shopping or whatever, and people were extraordinary through
Yeah.
that. I spent every day pretty much talking to Brad Hazard's chief of staff, who was health minister in New South Wales, to try and negotiate
Yes.
passes for people to leave locked down government areas to come and work on the show, or participants to come in from out of state in here. So, but we kept it all going, and the crews did a fantastic job in Melbourne and Sydney and elsewhere. And we did 2 productions of Survivor up in Queensland with the support of the Queensland government, because we couldn't film outside of Australia anymore, and we normally film in
Oh,
Samoa or
various.
Fiji. But
Yeah.
we filmed in Queensland, and with the support of the Queensland government, we brought everything in there, and we filmed up there, including setting up our own quarantine hotel. Because
Really, really.
yeah, we had to charter a jumbo jet to fly everyone in, and then we actually had to not construct a hotel, but we had to set up a hotel as a quarantine hotel with approval of Queensland Health in order to make it all work. So it's
Wow.
amazing the things that you do
Yeah. Yeah.
in TV. Quite
That,
quite
that's that's in actual fact, that's one of my favorite shows personally. Is Survivor. I think
yeah.
it's the Australian Survivor particularly. I love it. I think it's, and I really think what you were touching on before with celebrating people's attributes, and also seeing the real people.
Yeah.
They're put in real situations, and
Yeah.
you get to know them on a completely different level
Sure.
than what you normally would, because
Totally.
they're put out of their comfort zone, and it's I
All of
think
that.
it's a fantastic concept.
Definitely. I mean, Survivor is a fantastic concept. It's been going for a very long time. Bizarrely, somewhat bizarrely, it was originally a British idea.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and not that you'd want to be marooned on any beaches in Britain particularly, but it was originally a British idea. It was originally called Castaway,
Okay.
but the big success was in America, of course. But I mean, we've been going. This is our 10th year of Survivor here,
Fantastic.
Australia, and we're very proud of it. I think it's I think it's a fantastic series. I think it's one of the best going. And I like you. I love the Australian series. And some of the series and episodes we've had, I think, are second to none in the world.
Yeah.
The New York Times, I think, last year had Australian Survivor up there as one of the best programs of the year. So
Really
yeah.
fantastic.
So, as I say, international recognition of a lot of Australian content, which is fantastic to see. And we need more of it. Not just us, not just Endemol Shine, but more broadly, there's some fantastic work coming out of a lot of Australian companies, and we need a lot more recognition of all of that, and
Yeah.
putting our place up in the world. The analogy I always give is there's like the medal table at the Olympics. Australia
Yes.
punches above its weight in the
Yes.
Olympic medal table. Well, we actually do the same in entertainment and TV. It's just not sung or shouted loudly enough, often enough.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. No. No. 100. And is there any scoop that you have for new things coming on for Endemol Shine, or any new
Well, very hard to kind of give away too much, but I think the one I mentioned a little bit earlier is coming up. We're really very proud of, and I think will be an amazing little show on the ABC, which is called Headliners,
okay.
which features some less able-bodied people taking part in the show and coming together to form 2 bands under the mentorship of some great Australian musicians
Yes.
and artists. And they end up, the show follows their trajectory as they get together and rehearse and so on through until when they perform live at an actual festival, uh,
Wow.
which is phenomenal. It's an amazing story, and it's an amazing little series, and I hope it gets the audience it deserves when it comes on later in the year on the ABC. But Headliners is certainly one.
Headliners.
Yeah, and it's also a format that will go around the world,
Well,
hopefully, and then hopefully
okay.
there'll be other productions in other territories as well. Um, the summit, which is one of Endemol Shine's own productions, is being produced all the way around the world now as well.
Yes.
So that's done phenomenally well. Love Triangle is a little relationship show that originally we've done. We're about to do third series. We are doing third series currently on Stan,
Yeah.
Australia, but it's also a format that's gone around the world, and there are multiple productions in the UK and elsewhere. So, we're very proud of creating Australian IP and pumping
Yes.
it around the world. We need more of that too, because
Yeah.
that puts the Australian stamp elsewhere as well. So we're proud of all of that. But we've done more new IP, I would say, in the last 4 years than we've ever done before, and there's a real interest and demand in it now, and a reception to it that perhaps there wasn't before. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic.
Well, Scott, you must be very proud. I mean, I know I look at your TV shows when they're on, and I'm just I look at it. I think, wow, what production, what great shows. And the great thing is, as you said, they're Australian made, Australian
Yeah.
production, and you're spreading positivity and inspiring new people wanting to come into Australian media and
Well, hopefully. I mean,
yeah.
and if you haven't got time to watch all the programs, you can always watch one of my favorite programs that we make, which is called Gogglebox,
Toolbox,
where
yeah.
all the families and the households watch all those other programs, and you can get a glimpse of all those other programs through the Gogglebox people, and that's amazing. That's in its 19th season, I think, which is
What an
phenomenal.
amazing concept. I mean,
It is.
it's
I mean, to be honest, I remember it took a few years to sell, and when people were sort of looking at it and they had sort of didn't realize what it was like, so you're making a program about people watching television, really? You really think that's going to work? It's like, well,
yeah,
actually, yeah, because watching TV is in an old school sense is where the family sat down and sat and watched programs together. There's a lot less of that now, but there
yeah,
are still times when people get together, or at least are part of an audience, and that's really what I think Gogglebox is partly about, at least, is sharing the responses and the reactions to programs, and recognizing those responses and being part of that audience together with the cast of the show, which is
yeah.
a fantastic thing.
Well, certainly, I mean, as yourself and myself, how we grew up, I think a lot of the entertainment was sitting around with your folks and talking about those shows. And I think the ad breaks had the funny moments in just from a family perspective, So that's what I think when I watch that show. It's quite
Totally.
yeah. No, it's really good. It's really
Totally. Oh, there's also another one I forgot about, which is Sean McAuliffe has a new program on SBS called Origin Odyssey, where he takes six
yeah.
comedians who have backgrounds in different countries, and he takes them back to the country of usually their parents' origin, or sometimes their origin, and just explores that country with them in a not just a humorous light, but also in a quite a touching way, I think. And it's a really interesting program. As you said earlier, it can be really interesting understanding more about people, things that you don't really know and didn't understand. And this is a really, I think, great little program on SBS that we've done to sort of see a different angle of people whose job is to make us laugh, and they're funny, but they're also touching, and that's quite a great range of sort of interesting TV. So that's something else. That's a new format as well, a new piece of IP that we've created here. So another one that will hopefully be made elsewhere around the world.
No, that's I really like that approach. It's sort of comedic, but with aspects.
Heart. With
With heart.
heart.
Yeah, there you go.
And soul. Heart and soul. Funny with heart and soul. How about that?
Well, Scott, thanks so much for joining Brett Russell Chats today. You've shed a lot of light into the Australian media world and Endemol Shine particularly. And mate, thank you so much for being you and getting Australian media to where it is today, being part of the
Oh,
machine.
I don't think I can take responsibility for all of that, but
Not for
I'll
yourself.
happily just take responsibility for the little bit that I do in helping others to succeed. But thank you, I appreciate your time. It's very kind.
But certainly, I think from what I've seen today, talking to you, is you've got heart, and like we were saying, you've got good heart, and thank you, and all the best for media world in the future. So.
Thank you. Really appreciate your interest, Brett. I hope your audience find it as interesting.
It's great.
Appreciate your time.
They will. Thank you. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye now.